One of the biggest things of all, the biggest power of all is love. But love is a choice. Love is something that you've got to decide to do no matter what. Love is something that you've got to decide to do all the way. And love is definitely something that I'm going to tell you starts first in the mind before it ever can manifest in the heart. Love is one of the hardest things, especially when you've been hurt, to want to love again, to want to trust to love again, especially when you've been forsaken, to want to forgive that person and love them anyway, to even be there in true pure love. I'm not talking about 1 foot in to I can't stand you, I can't hate you, or I hate you, I don't want to be with you, but yet I love you. No, we're talking all in. And so many of us get to a place through jealousy, through being forsaken, to having our heart broken, to being cheated on, to being, oh my God, let me tell you the big one, to being lied to. That we choose to stand on our justification that because you did this to me, because you hurt me, because you lied to me, because you forsaken me, because you made me feel worthless, because you made me feel like I was not good enough, that I'm going to choose to take my love away from you. But here's the key word that I want you to hear. The truth will set you free. Just like it is a choice to stand on our validation and choose not to love, we are the ones responsible for how we feel about it and how we let it affect us. Now, don't get me wrong. There are things that are done against your will. There are horrific things that as you go onto Facebook, you just see countless stories. You see people doing evil to people. But let me tell you one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, and I get emotional and choked up, is when you've seen somebody who's been afflicted, when you've seen somebody who's had the most horrific things done to them, when you've seen somebody that has every right to say, I hate you and I can't stand you, and I have every right to hate everybody else and not trust anybody else again, to stay in that moment, is to have somebody say, but even in that moment, I forgive you. Because they've understand and they've gotten to a place where they know to be truly freed from that affliction, to be truly freed from the bondage and the jailhouse that puts you in, that the only way you can no longer have that power over you that the enemy wants to wield is only through letting it go, choosing to forgive, choosing to step forward, but more so not just to step forward because you'll take it with you, but to choose to love and to be an example of Christ. Song of Solomon chapter 8 verse 6, it says, place me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm, for love is strong as death. Its jealousy is unyielding as the grave. It burns like a blazing fire, like a mighty flame, and many waters cannot quench love. Rivers cannot sweep love away. If one were to give all the wealth that they owned, the wealth of their whole house, it would be utterly scorned and ridiculed. This lets me know that through love, nothing can come and contest it. Nothing can come and defeat it. That doesn't matter what you go through, that if you just choose, even when you don't want to, even when you're mad, even when you're upset, even when you've got the right to feel the way you do and be angered, that God says that if you just choose in those moments, that irregardless of what you feel, to love. That no matter what you went through, no matter what you're going through, that nothing can come and uproot that. Nothing can come and battle it and win. Nothing can come and take it down. You know, one of the other scriptures that I want to give, and man, and I really truly hope that I get to it and not take it out of order, but I'm just going to go ahead and bring the scriptures. But I love one of the scriptures I'm going to share with you where God reminds us that we are to be like him. You know, when we look at the walk of Jesus, which is the walk that he says, pick up your cross and what? Follow me. That is a true testament to the journey that we are going to have as Christians and believers, to say we believe that Jesus was born and walked the earth, was persecuted, and died on a cross for you and I, but rose on the third day. And through his death, we have defeated death. And through that death, he has now adopted those that receive him to have eternal life, that he goes and speak our name to God to say that person's name, hey, they're down with me. Is that we are to choose because God orders it. It is a commandment to love, to be the example of love, even though, like Jesus, was called names, was ridiculed, was beaten, was bullied. Come on, Lord. Was even betrayed and forsaken. And even those that he was in a relationship, that he walked with, that he gave to, that he even fed, and to make sure they were taken care of and blessed. That is the walk. And then even when he appeared in his great righteousness, those that had walked with him forever didn't even know him. He had to speak. And that means that even in moments when he was on the earth and even after his death, that he had to prove to them first just so they could believe again in him. Doubting Thomas. Well, I've got to see it to believe it. Even though Jesus had said it was going to happen. That he had to show proof. How many of those that you've got in your family that you say you're going to do something and you got a dream and you share it with them and they're telling you that you can't do that. That's not realistic. No one's going to believe you. No one's going to receive you. That's impossible. That they have to see it to believe it. This is the walk of Christ. This is what our Father went through. The one thing he did, and this is the part that I think is hard for us to get our mind around, was to make sure when he rose, he didn't just go up to heaven behind the curtain. He didn't just go up to heaven where no one could see him. No, he did it with witnesses. Come on, Lord. He did it so that people could see, not just say they believed it. He did it so that those that could see could write about it. He did it so that those that could see could testify to it. And he did it so that those that could see could finally stand against the enemies and endure what they were facing, what they were going to face. To endure the walk that now they would have to walk following him. You know, one of the other things that God says that it is so important, especially when we're baptized, when we choose to follow him, when we choose to say that I am a believer, is to not to be ashamed of me. Is to not to be scared to share with other people that you know me. To not to be scared to tell people you're a believer. Definitely not to be scared to tell people that you now have received Christ and salvation. He talks about in the scriptures I'm going to share with you, there's nothing to fear. That if you've truly chosen me, and you put me as your ambassador over you, that the things that you're going to face, the things that you're going to do, or that if you just stand with me and you choose to love no matter what, and even if you stumble, that if you choose to, even in those moments, proclaim me and stand with me, I will be the one that you can look down and see that no, you didn't fall all the way. I caught you. And I'm now going to help you stand and walk again. See, this is that defining moment, whether it's when we receive Christ or when we go through afflictions or when we have afflictions of the heart, that in that defining moment, what do you choose to do? What behavior? What road? Who do you choose to be like? Because anything other than loving, forgiving, is not the characteristics of Christ. It's the characteristics of the enemy. And he wants nothing more than to get you to not love, to start to push yourself away from people, to start to only let 2 or 3 people up close to you, so that there's a division, which means conquering, to get you to not trust again, to get you to have fear. I'm worried that if I go do this, then others are going to. I'm worried that if I say this, then others are going to do this. When the scriptures I share with you, God is very clear that if you are of me and you believe in my Son, that no matter what you endure, including heartbreak, including afflictions that were done to you, I will use all of it to grow you, to mold you. I will use all of it to test you, to teach you. But I will use all of it, including what the enemy does, for my will and my good. You know, one of the other things that God says that it is so important, especially when we're baptized, when we choose to follow him, when we choose to say that I am a believer, is to not to be ashamed of me. Is to not to be scared to share with other people that you know me. To not to be scared to tell people you're a believer.